morning, Mr. Volker. Welcome. I'll start with some sort of a reminiscence.
Okay.
Last year, the same room.
Yes.
We were here. It was a year ago, less than a year ago. It was August. We got to June. And we were talking about the same topic.
Yeah.
It was on the war in Ukraine. It was on the state of Atlantic alliance, the state of world security, European security. Now, considering the situation almost a year ago, what are we? Worse off, better off, or staying the same? Can we summarize it somehow?
Yeah, I understand. Thank you. It's great to be back here. And I remember what we said then, which was that I was somewhat optimistic that we were moving in the right direction. I'd say we're about the same. I don't think we're better off. I don't think we're worse off. It's different. So, for example, when we were talking about Ukraine, the Biden administration was providing support, but not enough, and with no clear outcome. President Trump has put all of the emphasis on ending the fighting, ending the war, and now everyone is talking about how do we end the war. But we're not any closer to that actually happening yet. That he has created the expectation of a ceasefire, but there is still no movement by Russia at all. And indeed, there's no additional pressure on Russia, which is somewhat surprising because the tools are there and we could have more pressure on Russia. I hope that we eventually do. One thing we see is, and we're 2 days into this now, which is Israel's attacks on Iran. This, a year ago, would have looked like a major escalation, a major war breaking out in the Middle East. At this stage, I think it is not likely to turn into that. Now, I could be wrong, we could still blow up, but I think we're going to have a couple of days of attacks, some Iranian reaction, and then it'll die down. We may face Iranian-sponsored terrorist attacks against Israeli interests or American interests in different parts of the world, but I don't think we're going to see that major war in the Middle East. And with China, I think that their determination to acquire Taiwan or reacquire Taiwan has not diminished at all. But I think their time horizon stretches out. Yeah.
So what's the time horizon approximately, within which we can expect, if something happens, most probably it happens within 3 years?
Concerning Taiwan?
Anniversaries for the Chinese communists.
I think longer. I think they put out this 2027 date, years ago. I don't think they feel bound by that. But I think if they thought there would be no resistance, if they thought it would just be easy, they would go ahead and do it right away. But I think they see that neither Taiwan is ready to go easily, nor is the US and others in the world ready to go easily. So they'll just keep playing it out over time. And that is, in relative terms, strengthening their own military and their own economy. In relative terms, becoming more central to global information systems, global economic systems, so that Taiwan is less central. Infiltrating and carrying out their own information activities and their own influence activities inside Taiwan. So they're going to keep playing that out for a while. If they detect a point where it would be easy, where it's like flipping a switch, as it was with Hong Kong, then I think they won't hesitate. Then I think they'll do it. But it's not there yet.
Something will probably, well, correct me if I'm wrong. If such thing happened, let's say it would be an attack against Taiwan. This would be qualitatively something different from the war of Ukraine, considering the impact on the stability of the world and the economic markets, and so qualitatively something different and more disrupting,
Yeah.
disruptive,
That's right.
destabilizing. Is that right?
I agree with that. But again, we don't know, we're speaking very speculatively here. But if there were a military attack or a military action by China, I am pretty convinced that China does not want to absorb a destroyed Taiwan.
Of course.
They look at what Russia is doing in Ukraine and they think it's ridiculous that they're destroying the places they want to acquire. That's not what the Chinese want to do. They want to acquire a healthy and wealthy Taiwan and see it integrated as a part of China. So I don't think that we're likely to see the kind of massive military assault that some people might imagine. China wants to be capable of that and demonstrably capable of that so that it can intimidate and try to force situations without using the force. I think that's where they would like to be, and that may take more time.
Well, perhaps there is a factor on which something will depend, and it's the development of Chinese communist regime itself.
Mm-hmm.
To remain at the speculation for a second.
Yeah.
Although it's can Chinese communism develop at all?
Well, I don't think you can look at Chinese communism and think of it in Marxist-Leninist ideological terms the way that the Soviet Union tried to
but
impose
they think
it.
about themselves in Marxist-Leninist to a certain
Yes,
level.
they do, but in reality, it's a capitalist, statist system. And it is a single-party system, meaning a single ruling power with the state at the center and the state controlling things. It's not, but they're using and they are effective in a capitalist system globally. That their businesses are operating on a market basis and effectively.
Well, perhaps. Anyway, I would like to be a bit longer, but
sure.
My last question concerns, of course, the Euro-Atlantic alliance and cooperation. Well, it may be true that the things are not going to be the same again. Perhaps they shouldn't, but can the transatlantic relationship be somewhat revitalized, or in what conditions, what circumstances would this need?
Yeah. I think people are reacting very emotionally to Donald Trump. They don't like his personality, they don't like the pushiness, they don't like the demands, the tariffs, all of that. But when you look at what's likely to happen, you're likely to have much higher level of European defense spending, a better balance to NATO that the US under Trump is now more supportive of because he sees Europe carrying its share of the burden. A Europe that is more capable of helping Ukraine and deterring Putin, and will find a way through these tariffs. The tariffs are a reaction by Trump to a perception of unfair trade, unfair business, regulations, non-tariff barriers, whatever it may be. It's not the appropriate reaction in my view. I don't think it's going to fix the things he wants to fix, but I think that European states will come up with better ways to deal with our economic differences, and we'll kind of drift into that. I don't see this, we're 5 months into the Trump administration, I don't see this level of zigzagging on tariffs continuing in year 2 and year 3 and year 4. I think we'll settle somewhere. So I'm actually optimistic about transatlantic relations because ultimately we're societies that are based on core values, freedom, democracy, market economy, rule of law. We have more in common with each other than with anybody else, and we face the same adversaries in the world.
Anyway, Europe cannot go it alone right now. And we've got some critical period in the approximate future.
Yeah, Europe cannot go it alone, but Europe can get stronger, and it's actually in the U.S. interest for Europe to get stronger.
Well, what about if behind this Trumpian, Trumpist rhetoric is hidden something like American sense of relative weakness? Is that the case?
America's sense of relative weakness
no more
of Europe?
Overstretch. We cannot do it anymore.
Well, I do think that there is a sense there that if we have a major war in the Middle East, a major war in Europe, and a major war in Asia, the U.S. cannot handle all three of these. I think there is a sense of that. And the most important one, as you said, is in Asia. So there is this greater emphasis placed on managing or avoiding a major conflict in Asia as compared with Europe, where I think the Trump administration thinks Europe ought to be able to handle that, and the Middle East, where Trump is very much trying to get Israel and Saudi Arabia to be able to work together, which would dramatically stabilize the Middle East, I think.
Optimistic version.
Optimistic. It's going the opposite way right now. And I think every time Israel uses military force, it makes it harder for everybody to find a way of working together with Israel. But that doesn't mean it's off the table. It just means it's now set back again.
Mr. Volker, it was our pleasure to meet you again. Thank you for your visit, thank you for your interview, and have a nice rest of the day and perhaps the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Hope to be back in Bratislava someday, too.